My name is Lindsay Jost. For those who have not attended one of my webinars in the past or who I have not had the pleasure of meeting around the clinic, I am a nurse practitioner and I work here with Dr. David Hasse and the deep dive patient program that we offer, as well as help oversee our regenerative plasma exchange program. And wear a lot of different hats as well. So you probably see me in a lot of various roles over the years. Today, we're going to talk about COVID-19 and specifically strategies to optimize resiliency. My slide clicking is sleeping. There we go. Okay, so a couple welcome notes. So I have you all on mute, but if you have a question, you can type your question in the Q&A box. In the event that the internet goes down, we will switch to a hotspot, so stay on for about 5 to 10 minutes, and then we'll get started again. For those who have attended many webinars, you're familiar with this process by now. All right, let's start with an introduction. So what we're going to talk about first is what we will cover and what we won't cover, because COVID-19 is a very large topic and it can be approached from a lot of different angles. So what we will cover today is a general knowledge regarding the known effects of COVID-19. We're going to define resilience as it relates to COVID-19, and then we're going to talk about strategies that you can do to proactively optimize your resiliency once we understand how resiliency can be applied in this particular setting. What we are not going to cover today is the COVID-19 vaccine and details about whether you should or shouldn't do it, pros, cons, and things of that nature, supportive treatment options for those who have tested positive for COVID-19, and then prophylactic and preventative medication regimens that are currently in the mainstream as potential options. Each of those topics are equally important and involve a larger conversation time section than we have today. So what we really want to focus on is the things that you can do to really feel empowered about how you approach your resiliency moving forward as we navigate this brand new world. So we have to first start by talking about a little bit of an FDA disclaimer when it comes to supplementation. So we are going to be talking about supplements in this webinar. Supplements by definition are not intended to treat, cure, or prevent any disease. The FDA defines a drug as intended for the use in the diagnosis, cure, mitigation, treatment, or prevention of disease. So this gets to be a little confusing, but we have to be really clear and specific when we're discussing supplements, especially in light of a pandemic age known viral infection. So for example, so that you can kind of quantify how this relates in practically speaking, in this webinar, I won't say vitamin D helps prevent COVID-19, as that would by FDA definition make it a drug. Even though we can show data that high levels of vitamin D are associated with an improved immune response, we are not stating that vitamin D can cure, treat, or prevent a COVID-19 infection. So if you're saying to yourself, well, wait a minute, we're showing data that it helps the immune response, and doesn't that help, maybe prevent COVID-19? Or at least the effects of it, it gets really murky and confusing, and which is why the supplement industry and the FDA have a really complicated relationship. So the long and short, and I think the easiest way to understand this is that at the present time, there isn't a direct corollary between if I take vitamin D, I'm eradicating this virus from my system. But what we want to do is we want to provide a general education on some of the things you can take supplementally to boost your body's immune function to create a resilient atmosphere for COVID-19 or any viral or bacterial infection that you may come across. We're entering into cold and flu season. They do still exist. And so it is important to bolster your body and create a soil and foundation that can be as resilient as possible. So COVID-19, a general overview of impact. Let's talk about the meta perspective for just a couple minutes. So what we know that COVID-19 has changed our world. And I know that every day there is more loss and stories of loss that are affecting maybe some of you personally, directly, or people that you've heard or known of that you've loved. It is safe to say that COVID-19 has affected each one of us profoundly in a variety of ways. So I first want to just honor and respect and take a moment to really, from a heartfelt perspective, cherish the lives that were lost in this viral pandemic. And then also recognize that there is a lot of things that are shifting both culturally and within our society that is taking steps forward that is a different world and paradigm than we have all navigated together before. So we know COVID-19 has changed our world. We also know that it's not going anywhere anytime soon. As we've seen with the Delta variant and potentially the existence of other variants as we learn more, we know that, and from our own knowledge of prior viruses and how they behave, that COVID-19 as a viral entity isn't going to be eradicated from our world anytime soon. So it's important for us to start to integrate strategies for how to all collectively move forward. So this information can lead to overwhelm, powerlessness, hopelessness, fear, isolation, doom and gloom. But what I really want you guys to know is that hope is not lost, and that there are a lot of ways that we can come together, continue to learn, be open, move forward, take all the knowledge we have so far, continue to obtain new information, and integrate it into our lives in a way to set us up for the best success possible should we encounter or contract COVID-19 ourselves. So let's talk about viruses just in general and how they behave, because I think having this understanding is really important as we go into the strategies that can optimize your resilience, because understanding how viruses work first is going to be a really good foundation for us to have that conversation. So viruses are tiny entities with a protein coat, and they have a core of either RNA or DNA material. The largest virus is smaller than even the smallest bacteria. So these are really tiny things. Unlike bacteria, viruses cannot survive without a host. Viruses reproduce themselves by attaching themselves to cells within the body and can often reprogram the cells to make new replications of itself. Excuse me. Something tickle in my throat. The body's immune response to these replicating viruses is often what causes the symptoms experienced. So understanding that the viruses attach themselves to receptors on cells within the body and then can reprogram the cells to make replications of itself. And the immune response to the replicating viruses is what causes the symptoms is just an important understanding with how this whole thing works. Excuse me again. Different viruses target different cell locations within the body, therefore can affect different organs and body systems. Some viruses, like the one that caused chickenpox, can lie dormant in the body for years and later spark another infection or even a different condition. So varicella zoster, the virus that causes chickenpox, for example, can hibernate for years, be completely inactive, and reemerge and cause what we know as shingles. The herpes simplex viruses work in a similar way. So either herpes simplex 1, which is known for cold sores on the mouth, or herpes simplex 2, which is known for genital herpes. So they can lie dormant. So the actual viral material with the protein coats and the DNA can be dormant within the body, unattached to active receptor cells. And then when the immune system is down, such as in times of stress, this can cause the trigger of an outbreak. So that's why you will see that sometimes whenever there's stressful situations, be it psychosocial emotional stress or even physical stress, increased exposure to heat, cold, sun can produce cold sores because the body was stressed, the immune system went down a little. It was an opportunistic moment for the viruses that are laying dormant to kind of activate and attach themselves and then create the cascade of symptoms that they typically do. So antiviral medications work by blocking receptors on these healthy cells so that viruses can't bind and therefore replicate. So this lowers the total active viral load in the body, which aids in the immune system's response, But antiviral medications do not eradicate the body of the virus. There is no known way to eradicate a virus from existence once it's out there. So this is really important to understand. But what about polio? So this is a great example because to put this into practical terms, because people use the polio example a lot. So the polio virus still exists. It is still in existence within our known quantifiable universe. However, the most commonly administered poliovirus vaccine works to decrease its prevalence by exposing the body to an inactivated form of the virus, causing the body to produce its own antibodies against the virus. Therefore, when it comes in contact with the poliovirus, the effects are not as severe as the body has already established antibodies within its own immune system to mitigate the effects and decrease viral replication. So if we have decreased viral replication and we have a bunch of people unresponsive or their antibodies are sufficiently taking care of the virus that they're exposed to, then if we have less replication, we have less shedding, which means we have less spreading. So that is why there are still copies, it is still in existence within our natural world, but it's not a current health crisis or concern because of the way that particular vaccine was able to be administered within the community. So that is not a support or plug or saying anything about the COVID-19 vaccine. This is just a general understanding of the fact that viruses as entities, we don't have a way to completely eradicate them. More support for finding ways to optimize your resiliency, and furthermore supporting the earlier point that the COVID-19 virus isn't going to be going anywhere anytime soon, and we're going to need to find ways to continue to move forward altogether. So, okay, I get that, but does the coronavirus behave this way? Well, because everything I've told you is just what we currently know about previous viral pathogen sort of traditional arcs of activity. We are still researching. We are observing science in real time. This is a very unique situation. There are a lot of times where science will occur behind closed doors in research labs, and we learn things over time, and then scientific data gets released and into the public, and then it becomes general knowledge. Well, they're still very actively looking at documenting how the coronavirus behaves as a virus itself. So it's really unsure. We can kind of assert that it will take the traditional viral lifespan paths, but we're not sure. And there's a lot of research still being done. So we can't say with certainty that everything I just explained is going to be exactly how the coronavirus will behave. What we do know is that the coronavirus has some pretty profound vascular effects. And those who contract the coronavirus can have vascular inflammation. We know that some people can be more prone to blood clots. We know that the capillary function can be affected. Lower respiratory tract inflammation has been observed, which is why a lot of times in more serious cases, it can progress to a secondary pneumonia and can cause shortness of breath and trouble with breathing. So the COVID viral protein, so the COVID's version of the protein coat, gets into cells through the ACE2 receptors. Your lower airways and your lungs have more ACE2 receptors than the rest of your respiratory tract, which is why COVID-19 is more likely to go deeper into the respiratory tract than viruses like the common cold. So they've been able to observe that so far, which brings a little bit of understanding as to why there is so substantial respiratory effects for people who have really acute presentations of COVID-19. There are others, as I'm sure you all are aware, who can contract the virus and not have as significant of an impact. I think there's still a lot of research being done to figure out why that's the case. Why does it affect some people differently, more profoundly than others, and things of that nature. We have a lot to learn. So let's define resilience and why it's so important. Now that we kind of have a general understanding of viruses, how they work, why they linger, a little bit more about COVID-19 and what we know so far and how that particular virus impacts the body. So COVID-19 is an opportunity. So just like I said, now that we know how viral pathogens and COVID-19 works a little bit more, we can focus on how to best prepare and all that we can do in the moment. So the word resilience means, by definition, the capacity to recover quickly from difficulties or to have toughness. And it also means the ability of a substance or object to spring back into shape, to have elasticity. And that's what we want to go for. We want to do everything we can to give you strategies to increase your bounce back. Think about your Tigger from Winnie the Pooh. You know, should you contract COVID-19 or any other serious viral illness, how do we best support your body's ability to spring back into shape, to fully recover? So our goals for today are to really decrease fear and to increase hope. I would hope that you all get to leave with a sense of feeling empowered and supported, knowing that you don't not have options, that there are ways you can do everything you can to feel good about supporting your body as we embark into the next season of life in the COVID-19 era, that you will not be as fearful of what may occur should you come into contact with or have exposure to the coronavirus. So let's talk about the inflammation bucket, because that's really important. So managing your inflammation bucket is one of the most important keys for resilience. So optimizing your resiliency first starts with understanding, what does that even mean? Well, the inflammation bucket is an amazing framework for understanding that it's not just one thing that contributes to your body's response to any particular trigger. We like to talk about it as a bucket. So you have a lot of different aspects and influences that go into your total bucket load. That may include a high level of stress. It may include a predisposition to some sort of genetic challenge. It may include a lifestyle that isn't very healthy and supportive. It may include allergies and things that your body is consistently reacting to that you may not even know. It may include long-term inflammation because of the reaction to some of those things. So as I've listed here, a few things that contribute to inflammation, as we discussed: malnutrition, inactivity. Exercise is one of the best things to decrease oxidative stress and boost positive endorphins. So as I'm talking about all these things, imagine a really big bucket. So let's say that you're living life and your bucket is kind of half full. So there's some space in your bucket where if let's say you get exposed to another infection or another toxin, well, you haven't overflowed yet from your total load. And so you're able to fight that off, or your immune system is activated. You might feel a little crummy, and then you kind of bounce back, and you're able to sort of withstand. It's kind of like a wave, like, okay, we go up, we go down, but I'm functional and kind of in that space. If, however, your inflammation bucket is already brimming full, then any sort of insult or injury or additional thing that comes in that's going to create a cascade of reaction, boom, we are overflowing. And that's whenever we really shift into more degeneration than regeneration. And it's really hard for the body to keep up and for the immune system to adequately handle the overflow. It's like, it's the Lucille Ball, the chocolates in the chocolate factory. All of a sudden there's too many and she can't put enough in her mouth. That's what happens whenever your bucket gets too full. So what we want to do is we want to find ways to manage your inflammation bucket so that you view your life and the things that may contribute to inflammation as a bucket, and know that you may not be walking around with it totally full. You may have some space in there where if you have exposure to an infection, you're able to recover better. So everything that's within your understanding and control, aside from doing really specialized testing, we can make some general foundational recommendations to try to make sure there's space in your bucket. So let's dive in and talk about strategies to optimize your resiliency and to make sure we've got some space in that inflammation bucket of yours. So number one thing is lifestyle. And by that, I am not talking about anything specific, but I'm talking about your general style of life. The body is designed to heal. It's one of the principal beliefs and core components of our culture here at MaxWell Clinic is to believe that the body is designed to heal. Is that something that you fully believe? Are you sending messages and are you engaging in life in a way that is in full support of your body's optimal functioning? Is your style of life supporting regeneration or degeneration? Are you adding in additional toxins? Are you giving yourself negative messages? Are you taking the world's pressures on? Are you in a toxic environment, either within your own mind, within your close family interpersonal relationships? Maybe it's work, maybe it's something to do with your children. There's a whole lot of different avenues and aspects in the playground of life that could be contributing to a more degenerative state. So it's important to ask yourself, what messages and signals is your body and immune system receiving on a daily basis? Are you in constant fear? I really like using the tailbone analogy. And for those who have never heard of this, let me just take a couple minutes to explain, because it's an amazing way to say, am I stressed? So we are just like, let's just use a dog, for example. When a dog is scared, its tailbone is tucked. So we all have a tailbone, and you can sit in a chair, and you can do this when you're driving even, and you can actually feel, if you pay attention to it, whether your tailbone is curled in and crunched or in a relaxed and open state. All you have to do is really focus on it for a couple minutes, and then you'll be able to start to track with yourself throughout the day. It's a really fun checkpoint and way to try to test and get into your own body of what is the state of my tailbone. It seems simple, but the effects are profound, because it is a way for you to increase your awareness on how stressed and in fear you're currently living. And then you get to be curious and ask yourself questions about that and start to shift maybe the way and the style in which you're living. Huge, huge, huge impacts on your immune system and the signals of inflammation. What you focus on grows, and where you place your attention is where you place your energy, and you are really powerful. And so that is the main message. This seems simple, but it is really profound. Next, another strategy. Let's talk about sleep. So sleep is incredibly anti-inflammatory. It decreases oxidative stress and it enables the immune system to function at its best. So things you can do to try to optimize your sleep: turn off screens at least an hour before bedtime. Blue light blocking glasses are an amazing tool to put on. I mean, they look real cool too, but you can just get them on Amazon. They're really cheap. They have, orange and amber and different tones, but you can put them on at night if you are going to watch a little TV after the sun goes down. We're getting into the daylight savings where the evenings are going to be darker, and it just doesn't have all that blue light signaling to your eyes to wake up. It allows your brain to calm down a little, and it'll help you wind down before bed. So next, a wind down time, nightly routine, meditative and reflective time before bed with gratitude. What's one thing you can be thankful for that you experienced that day? That way your brain and the constant going that we are all in our modern age can just, have a minute to take a break. Epsom salt baths are great for sleep, making sure the room that you're sleeping in is cool enough. There's this fun little device called a chili pad that I know some patients have had a lot of use with. It's actually a pad that keeps your body temperature at a lower rate, and it can induce a more restful sleep. Consider adding additional magnesium to support sleep. We have a product called MemorMag. Taking 1 to 2 scoops of that at night is helpful. Magnesium threonate crosses the blood-brain barrier and is an amazing tool to support neuronal function in general. Melatonin, 3 milligrams sublingual nightly. So you may have heard melatonin in the COVID world. Melatonin is a great natural anti-inflammatory. Taking it regularly is safe. There's an age-old debate on if I take that I won't be making my own. They have debunked that to my knowledge, and using melatonin regularly is completely safe and really supportive. You can have a little bit of a melatonin hangover the next day. So if that's the case, careful of your dosing, but restorative sleep is really important. Exercise is one of the best things you can do for sleep. Really getting those muscles moving every day. And then decreasing caffeine and alcohol intake. Both caffeine and alcohol tremendously impact sleep. Stress has a huge impact on your immune system and your body's resiliency and ability to be resilient. So reduce it whenever possible. Daily meditative or reflective time, even just 5 minutes. Paced breathing. Are you paying attention to how you are breathing? Couple of apps that we've recommended before, the Waking Up app with Sam Harris, for those of you who are novice meditators. It's a great intro to try to learning how to do that, because it's kind of hard if you don't really know what you're doing. The Chopra app, the Muses headband is a great neurofeedback tool that you can purchase on your own, use at home, and it kind of brings meditation and neurofeedback together, and it kind of trains your brain, and it makes it fun. Practicing gratitude and mindfulness. Where's your whimsy? Are you being playful throughout the day? Play more, overanalyze less. Practice boundary setting and enoughness. Know that what you're doing in that moment is all that is currently in existence, and trying to stay out of the depressive past or the anxious future. Know that life is both the max and the well, that it's all about going and it's all about resting and resetting, and that it's going to be a constant dance. Just give yourself some grace, and then ask for help and seek support, especially with any traumas. EMDR is great. Right now, there's a lot of stress around COVID-19 in general. There's isolation. Reach out to have community wherever you can. Movement. Ensure daily physical activity, walking, high intensity interval training, and the microvascular system. So quick bursts, it doesn't take much, 20 to 30 seconds of a sprint, high intensity interval training, and then boom, rest, has been shown to increase small capillary function. And COVID-19 dramatically affects the microvascular system. So from a resiliency standpoint, if you are already training your body and integrating high intensity interval training now, you are in a much better space when it comes to recovery and resilience from COVID-19. Movement includes emotion. So emotion is just energy in motion. So as things bubble up in your day-to-day life, when appropriate, processing that, feeling it, sharing it with the people that you trust and love, being vulnerable, that movement is also included in the things that are going to set up your soil to be as resilient as possible during this time. Also, bowel movements. So movements include bowel movements. So if you are not having a bowel movement every day, talk to your MaxWell Care clinician about that. There are a lot of strategies that we can help to get their motion in the ocean, so to speak, but our bowels is one of our best ways to decrease and release toxins. And so if we're holding that in, our body and our immune system is not functioning as optimally as it could. So get that going too. And then tracking of movement. So sleep and heart rate variability. Heart rate variability has a lot to do with your recovery index and the ability to withstand stressors. The Aura Ring is awesome. If you guys don't already use it and you're looking to start doing some biometric tracking, I highly recommend it because of the recovery index aspect and the heart rate variability. Apple Watch is also great for general biomarker tracking. Beware of data-driven stress. So I have to put this disclaimer. For some people, getting more data on how your body is functioning is a stress reliever, and it's exciting and engaging. For others, to see that number every day, it might, to say, oh, I didn't sleep well, might then dictate how you experience the rest of your day. If you are somebody who is highly influenced by personal data tracking, it may be something to consider that might cause you additional stress and might not actually be helpful for you at this time. What works for one doesn't necessarily work for all. So I just want to make sure we have that disclaimer out there too. Purpose, meaning, relationship, and community. These are all really important aspects to resiliency as well. So purpose. What do you feel that you are purposeful in your day-to-day life? What meaning are you contributing to the world? These are bigger questions, but if you're feeling isolated and you're feeling the weight and the stressors of life, I think this is one of the gifts of this COVID-19 era, is to start really assessing what is truly important to you, and also to how you're contributing into this world and being of service, and what brings you light in life. Relationship, not only to others, but how your relationship with life itself. Anytime there's deep resistance, our bodies feel that. Our sympathetic nervous system fires off, and a whole cascade of hormones release to cause inflammation. And then if COVID-19 comes into an already inflamed state, the symptoms are going to, from what we've seen, are going to be more significant, and it's going to be a little bit harder to recover. Community is really important. So you guys have probably heard about the blue zones and longevity. There's been tons of articles about it lately, but what I find to be really interesting is that one of the most common denominators and things linking the blue zones is a sense of community and a connected sense of community. So a higher quality of connection and community directly correlates to a reported higher quality of life and increased longevity. So keep that in mind. You may dismiss those things, especially in the world where we're looking for the supplement or the diet or the thing to kind of fix it. These parts and aspects are just as imperative and really, really, really important to think about. So let's talk about nourishment. So being adequately hydrated is really important to bolster resiliency. The general rule of thumb is half of your body weight in ounces of high quality filtered water per day. So if anything over that, if you're working out a lot, great. But just as if you want to have a general biomarker, you take your weight in pounds, divide that by half, and that's the amount of ounces a day. That'd be a goal amount of water to have. And then consuming a diet that is low in inflammatory foods or an anti-inflammatory style diet. So what does that mean exactly? So eating to support low levels of inflammation. Gluten and dairy-free diet. So it is hard to argue the inflammatory effects that both gluten and dairy have, regardless as to whether you have a specific sensitivity to them or not. Eliminating added sugars. Sugar is a huge inflammatory substance within the body. So added sugars, any white sugar, any extra maple syrup, it can kind of sneak in there on you. Honey is sugar, just being kind of sugar aware. So using carbohydrates, meaning your grains, your extra beans and things like that, and meat as more of a condiment than a main portion of what you're eating will help with inflammation. So keeping a plant-heavy Mediterranean-style diet with high-quality olive oils and healthy fats, good leafy greens, your kales, your chards, your spinaches, your mixed lettuces, your of the world. You can do a lot of sauteing and fresh salads, high consumption of color-rich vegetables, lots of garlic, onions, rosemary, curries, berries, green tea, olive oil, avocado, olives and nuts. That will really help decrease your total inflammation if those are the mainstays within your diet. Reduce exposure to any known sensitivities, such as histamine or specific foods tested through your clinician. So some of you may already know that you have a histamine sensitivity, or, when I eat almonds, I have X reaction. Well, that's just adding to your bucket, and that can cause you to overflow it. And we want to try to avoid that if possible. So especially during this time, I would just try to reduce exposure to that as much as possible. Reduce alcohol intake. Alcohol is a known toxin within the body, and it definitely contributes to the inflammatory cascade. Decreasing inflammation as a general rule of thumb. Decreasing inflammation can also be supported by the use of our medical food Inflammacool at 2 scoops a day. Inflammacool has tons of stuff in it, and it's a great way to get in a lot of anti-inflammatory additional properties and help support the body. So you'll also want to increase your intake of phytonutrients such as sulforaphane, EGCG, curcumin, quercetin, or resveratrol. These compounds have many separate actions for decreasing oxidation and oxidative stress and inflammation, such as increasing the production of glutathione in your cells and activating NRF2 pathways. So how you can get these compounds, because you're like, I don't have a label that says resveratrol on it for, if I'm at a grocery store. So the things that contain these amazing phytonutrients are cruciferous vegetables. That would be your Brussels sprouts and broccoli and cauliflowers of the world, some turmeric, green tea, grapes, blueberries, blackberries. Those are really great examples of phytonutrient heavy foods. Let's talk about supplements. So aside from all the things we mentioned, sleep, stress, movement, purpose, meaning, relationship, community, different nourishment options from a dietary perspective, let's talk about the supplements that you can add in. So I broke these down into 3 tiers. Tier 1, if you do nothing else, if you have to pick the most essential 2 supplements to take from a COVID-19 effect and optimizing resiliency perspective, it would be high quality fish oil, specifically our omega-3 monomax formula, because it is 3 times more absorbable than your run-of-the-mill fish oil. 1 capsule twice a day, but really 2 capsules twice a day are great. You want to consume approximately 3 grams daily. Fish oil and inflammation are like water and fire. Fish oil has a huge effect on body-wide inflammation and decreasing it as a total load. And then vitamin K2 plus D3, 5,000, 1 capsule. I use 1 capsule a day. Vitamin D3 has been shown to absorb a little bit better when it's combined with vitamin K2. And the effects that vitamin D has on our immune system is incredibly supportive. Now, if you already have high levels of vitamin D and you have any autoimmune processes, it's something you're going to want to talk to your clinician about, because they may make tailored recommendations for you otherwise. But as a general rule of thumb, and especially with all of us now living most of our lives indoors and no longer, working the farm outdoors, taking a daily vitamin D and going into winter is really essential. So if you do nothing else, these 2 supplements are going to set you up for success from a resiliency standpoint. Tier 2, optional additional foundation products, Endo-Calyx, 2 capsules twice a day. This is a remarkable product that is specifically focused on your microvascular system. It has glucosamine and chondroitin in it, and it has had profound data and effects at bumping up the microvascular system and function. Patients of ours who have had COVID-19 and then do a really fun test called the glycocheck, we will often put them on this as part of their recovery. If you do this preventatively, you're already setting yourself up for success. Additionally, we have a broad-based multivitamin called Daily NRG. There's a with iron formulation and a without iron formulation. You can ask your MaxWell clinician which one they'd recommend for you. 2 capsules twice a day is really great and covers the full gamut. If you're doing Inflammacool has a lot of these multi-minerals in it already, so you may not need this additional daily NRG support, but if you're just wanting to take something supplementally, this is great. So let's talk about zinc for a second. So there is zinc contained within the daily NRG product. Unless you are acutely ill and for only a short period of time, would you take zinc? You want to be really careful about taking extra zinc daily, because too much zinc throws off your zinc to copper ratio and can actually be harmful for you. So getting zinc that is essentially within this multi-mineral formula should be sufficient for the day-to-day. Again, if you become acutely ill with COVID-19, your clinician may recommend a short burst of increased zinc, but that wouldn't be something you'd want to do or sustain. Thirdly, a high-quality probiotic. Your immune system, so much of its function is from your gut. So many things come back to the gut. If you haven't watched Mary's gut webinar from last week, I suggest that everybody does. So the 2 kind of foundation products that I'd recommend would be our Flora Foundation SB product. This has Saccharomycin boulardii in it as well, so it really helps with decreasing the risk of any yeast overgrowth. And it's a great broad spectrum probiotic. So Flora Foundation SB 1 capsule a day, or Flora Foundation 30 1 capsule a day. There has been a lot of questions in the past about, do I need to switch up my probiotic if I've been on the same one for a long time? If it is a high quality, high diverse probiotic, you really don't. It should continue to work for you and be sufficient over time. So lastly, tier 3, optional further supportive products. So IgEs. IgEs has quercetin in it. 1 capsule twice a day. It is amazing for anybody who has seasonal allergies. And for those of us who live in Nashville, that is a continual problem for many. So it just helps with the bucket. If you already have some seasonal allergies or allergens that you're reacting to, IgEs is great at kind of that mast cell stabilization process and decreasing the histamine response. So doing that on the front end and having additional quercetin in your system is nothing but supportive, phytonutrient wise as well. Vitamin C. Vitamin C is a wonderful friend. It is water soluble, which means that it flushes out of your system really quickly. So taking it through a little bit throughout the day is actually more effective. Your body can only absorb so much at one time than taking a huge, massive dose at once. So 500 to 1,000 milligrams throughout the day for a total of 3 grams daily is just a great additional add-in sort of immune and antioxidant support. We have a product called ImmuFlex 3.6. It has beta-glucan in it. 1 capsule a day on an empty stomach is targeted for helping the immune system function at its best. Great preventative, great to take during the winter, just something else that you can do from a setting yourself up standpoint. And lastly, we had the whole phytonutrient conversation with the cruciferous vegetables, et cetera. So we have 2 supplements that you can actually take to really bolster those phytonutrient effects. NRF2 Catalyst at 1 capsule a day, or OncoDetox ES at 1 capsule twice a day. Both of them will activate the pathways to support more glutathione being made naturally in your body, and glutathione is best made homegrown. So OncoDetox ES is really more, it's a little stronger than the NRF2 Catalyst. So for those who have pre-existing oxidative stress or dealing with chronic conditions, I would go down that pathway for phytonutrient support, the OncoDetox ES, versus those of us who just want kind of that foundational phytonutrient support. The NRF2 Catalyst is a great product. So what if I get COVID-19? What about me specifically? Maybe a question that you're asking yourself. So your MaxWell Care clinician can help guide you as well as make tailored recommendations for you. And your MaxWell Care clinician is really your partner for personalized care, both proactively to help bolster your resilience as well as acutely should you have any questions along the way. I highly encourage you to lean in on that relationship and with your advocates to get any questions that you have about your case specifically answered as they come up in real time. That's what we're here for. We're here to walk this journey and path with you. Okay, so I see one Q&A pop up here. What is the general difference between Flora Foundation SB and Flora Foundation 30? So Flora Foundation SB has the Saccharomycin boulardii in it. Flora Foundation 30 does not. So if you were to take Flora Foundation 30 with our product called C Defense, then you would have that combination. The Flora Foundation SB just has that extra component in it already. So it really depends on how concerned are we with yeast, because Saccharomycin boulardii is a specific strain that helps decrease yeast overgrowth, any concerns when it comes to the yeast family. It does that naturally and really, really well. So both are a great foundational broad spectrum. One the SB just has a little bit of targeted effects when it comes to the yeast camp. Any other questions that I can answer? I know we ran a little bit long. There was a lot of information, so thank you guys for hanging with me. Since I don't see any other questions coming in, I know not everybody types really fast, so I'm trying to talk slow and give the option for more questions to come in. But I will go ahead and wrap this up if there's nothing else. Nobody else has any other questions. Okay, thank you guys so much for your time, for listening. I hope to have provided some hope and some empowerment as you embark on the next few months. Okay, everybody, have a great night, and we will catch you on our next webinar. Thank you.